Hi, I'm Laura, and I want to welcome you to Adventures in Creating, where I take you on an adventure to make something hopefully awesome. This week, we are going to be making these adorable little ghosts. Woo! Anyone who knows anything about Halloween and Halloween decorations knows that ghosts, whether big or small, have a place on our decorating. So these are a great activity. Not only are these extremely cheap to make, they're also very easy, a great craft to do with your own family or friends, of course. And these, because they are very inexpensive, you could make lots of them and place them everywhere for Halloween. These are a great activity. I'll, of course, leave below in the description a link to my website, which will have all the directions written out, and you can peruse that at your leisure. So, without further ado, let's get into something spooky. Getting started on our project today, we are going to be making these adorable little ghosts. These are a great activity because not only are they cheap and inexpensive, they're fun and they're simple enough that even a young child could do, of course with adult supervision. And I expect you already have most, if not all, of the ingredients you need on hand. For starters, in order to make them, of which you can see, they like to fly. Ooh. And of course they fall over. They can stand up, but I make mine flying. You will need coffee filters. Your regular size coffee filters will work fine to make these slightly smaller ghosts. These are great, especially for young children. I have made these with my children and they had a blast. You will also need something to stuff them with, either cotton balls or if you have stuffing or what we call batting for filling an item, whether it's a pillow or something else. You will also need some string. I am going to be using yarn. I like the way the white yarn looks the best. You can see I did that on my large ghost here because it blends right in. You can, of course, use other colors. I have some black here that I used. I also used some orange. I recommend having some markers, but if you prefer to have ghosts without faces, by all means, forego the markers. When you're using your string, you also need something to cut it with. Some regular, ordinary scissors will work. If you wish to make larger ghosts, like my larger one here, you will need larger coffee filters. These are going to be ones you would get from, say, a restaurant supply shop. These are going to be extra large. I will try to remember to put a link in about these in the description, but the ones that most of you will have on hand are the smaller ones. I will show you how I made the ghosts for all of these. Optional, it is not necessary, but does make part of this project a little easier, is a hot glue gun or using a different kind of glue that you have on hand. So without further ado, now that we have our materials displayed, I'm going to show you how we make these lovely little ghosts. I'm going to start by taking one of my small coffee filters. This is just an ordinary one, what I would use to brew a cup of coffee. And I am going to fold this in half, like so. It doesn't have to be perfect, although of course if you want to measure, if you have a cutting board or mat that you work on that has lines or using a ruler, you can get this exact. But for my purposes, I am going to just fold this in half and eyeball it. And I think you can see it is not 100% perfect. That is okay, especially for our purposes. Now what I'm going to do is, with my scissors, I'm going to make a very small cut right in the center. And you can see it's very tiny. It's hard to see, but we need that for our string. While this is folded over, I'm going to then unfold it. Now you can still see my depression line, which is probably a little hard to see on camera, but if you are looking at your coffee filter, it's running along right here, you will be able to see where that line is, where you folded, where you creased. Take your markers, whatever markers you have. I used a Sharpie originally, which is great, but I felt like the Sharpie did end up bleeding quite a bit on the coffee filters. So I'm going to actually just use some regular old washable markers that I have. And I'm going to make a face. Your face can be as detailed and intricate as you wish, or it can be as simple. It can be as simple as just 2 little dots and a mouth. You can make it happy, you can make it sad. And you can see I pushed a little bit with my marker, and as such, the ink is running a little bit. That's okay, just be aware. And you can even do fun things like add details, like add eyelashes and make it a girl. You could add a patch and make it a pirate ghost. There are so many options. This is a great place to let your creativity fly. Just like our ghosts, haha. And because I'm using this smaller one, I will show you first with the cotton balls how you are going to use them. So you can take 1, you could take 2 cotton balls if you wished, but if you overstuff these, you're not gonna have much of the trailing down parts. So for me, my purposes, I'm going to take just 1 cotton ball. Ooh, 1 cotton ball. As I take this cotton ball, I'm also going to take then my yarn or my string. And what I will do is I'm going to take out a section of this. And since I'm using the white, this is great because it will be camouflaged because our whole ghost is white except for her face. And I am going to tie a knot. So what I do is I have the 2 ends of my string over each other, and I will fold over the one so it goes through. And I apologize, it is a little hard to see because it's white on white. And I'm going to tie it over again. 2 ends over, tuck the front, back, and through the loop. So that's pretty secure. Fabulous. And you can trim this tail end, the little bit that's hanging off, down a bit. Don't trim it all the way at the knot, otherwise it might completely unravel. I'm just going to trim it down so it's a little bit shorter. Excellent. Now with this, ta-da, I'm going to figure out how long I want my ghost to be. So how far I want this to dangle. Whether I'm going to attach it to the fan strings in my house or whether I'm going to put this on a windowsill or a doorknob. It depends on your particular preference. So I'm going to just cut this. It's about the length of my forearm. So probably maybe just over a foot. It's your choice, however long you want to make it, whatever works for you. So now we have our string and our cotton ball together. Next, we're going to feed that through our little cut that we made in our coffee filter. Feeding our string through our coffee filter ghost, what I do is I push my finger right at the hole. Why I am doing this is so I can better see where that hole is. You want to be careful not to push too hard because you can tear these. These are just coffee filters and they are a little bit on the delicate side, at least at this stage. So what I'm just going to do is I find my hole, my incision, whatever term you like to use, and I'm going to try and feed my string, my yarn through this. Fun little fact that you could do is if you wanted your string to be almost invisible, so these are almost like they're floating in midair, you could use something like fishing line or clear plastic string. So if you have any of that laying around, feel free to use that. It will give a really great look. And that part is done. Great. We have our head is going to be formed. Now we're taking our yarn, our string again, and I'm going to hold the string again gently so I'm not tearing our ghost. And I drew the face on first so that I could form the face around the gathering. So here we can see our little ghost and we can still see her face. It's getting a little smushy, but that's okay. We just will adjust that and you can always do some touch up later if you want. It's supposed to be a ghost. It doesn't need to look perfect. And with my string, I am going to, I'm going to just wrap it around. Be careful you don't tuck in the string that's from the top. That is something that can happen. And I'm going to wrap this around using my loose end at the moment several times. And I will just wrap and wrap and wrap and wrap. and probably about 6 or 7 times until I feel comfortable that the head is defined and this won't fall apart. Once I've done enough wraps that I want, I will then take the end that's still connected to my ball of yarn and I will give that a quick cut. I have these. I'm going to just tie a little knot in the back. You could, of course, do this in the front, especially if you are good at making bows or you wanted to make it look like the ghost was the ghost of a businessman wearing a tie. So you could tie this in the front if you wanted to do a different type of knot. I'm going to show you just a very simple knot. So I just did my cross over and I will cross it over again. You can see I take one end and cross it over the other and create sort of that loop. And I tuck the front down and under and pull it tight. Now I have my knot is made. Wonderful. And you could leave your ghost like this, especially if you are having a young child make this. No harm in that. You can fluff up the skirt and bravo, there we have it. Woo! But you can also, of course, tuck in your ends if you wish. That is something that it's a great thing. It makes it look a little bit more finished. And that is just kind of carefully finding a spot of the string that you can tuck into. Or what you can also do, and this is where the hot glue gun comes in. So especially if you're working with children, make sure you're exercising a little bit extra caution with them. So you might want to do this part yourself. You can take your hot glue gun, making sure it's preheated, and put just a drop of glue over top of that knot. While that is drying, then you can snip the ends of your string pretty close to the knot and to your glob of glue. And being careful to actually cut it and not carry off your ghost like I just did. So there we go. That is going to be secure. It's not going to unravel. It has the glue to hold it. And as I said, you can fluff this out. You can, of course, if you made the skirt or the hanging down portion of the ghost a little more consistent, you could make it stand. Although I found that mine tended to be a little more lopsided, but you can always adjust that as you go. There we go, our standing ghost. But these are a lot of fun to just sort of let them hang and dangle. Whether you're decorating something, like I said, a window, you're putting them on a wreath, putting them on as just decorations around or around a door, it can be just a fun element to add to your Halloween decor. So this was one way of making our little ghost. I will show you now making a ghost with the bigger coffee filters because I think I like how those look quite a bit as well. And we're going to use some of the stuffing for that. So let me set this ghost aside and I will grab our next filter. This project will be very similar to the first part that we did, which is great because this makes this a lot of fun. So I have my large filter. This is not one that you would use on your standard coffee pot. This would be if you have a much larger one. So maybe if you attend a church, you may have seen if they have the very tall coffee pitchers, or if you work in a restaurant or a banquet hall, something like that, you may have experience seeing some of these. You will have to dig a little bit for these sorts of filters. Like I said, I will put a link down below in the description in case you are interested in getting these for yourself. Or if you happen to have them on hand, great. This is just showing you some variation on this great simple project. Similar thing as we did before. We are going to take our coffee filter and I am just going to put a crease in it, folding it in half. Again, for me, this does not have to be absolutely perfect. Now that that's folded in half, I am going to, again, put a little snip right in the back, up the top here. And again, you try and make this pretty small. It needs to basically be just small enough so your string will fit through. It does not need to be a big one. Otherwise, it's going to be harder. You have to do more work to make the string stick in there. So now we have our little incision. I am opening this up and you can see a little bit better because it's larger, the crease line that I put in. Flattening that down, and we are going to take our markers. I like using the black the most for the faces, but feel free to use whatever colors you want and make whatever kinds of eyes you want, or mouth, or whether they are angry eyes, whether they are sad eyes. This is your opportunity to be creative. So here I'm making sort of a more melancholy looking ghost. I am not an amazing artist, so my creations are only so-so, and that's okay. And I'm gonna add some fun eyebrows just because. And now that we have our green eyes on our ghost, it looks black in the camera, but they are green. I'm gonna also add a nice red mouth. And I made happy ghosts because I'm happy, most times at least. So there we go, we have our ghost face. Wonderful, looks great. With our string, this will be similar as before. Measure out however long you need, however long you want, depends on where you want to display it. And feel free to use any colors. I have used white because I preferred that, but I also have some black yarn available. I also used some orange if you wanted to give it more of that festive, fall, Halloween type scene. With your string, you are now going to make a knot. So what I recommend is we're going to make a loop at the end. Then we are going to take this tail here. We are going to take that behind, and basically we're pushing it down. And we push that tail end down and pull it up through. Just completely pull it up. Wonderful. We have a little knot. I'm going to do that again. So I take my yarn, I'm tying a knot over the end, pulling the string, dipping it down and pulling it through, trying to make that knot a little bit larger. And there we have it. What I'm going to do with this string now is flip over my filter and feed my string through. Again, I make my incisions pretty small, mainly because I don't want to risk tearing and I don't want to have to secure my strings extra. And pull this through. Careful not to pull the knot all the way through. What I'm going to do, and since you have coffee filters that kind of stand up a little bit, I'm going to place just a little bit of glue right around our knot. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this to hold the string in place, making sure it's not going to come all the way through, and also closing up that knot to add a little bit of security to the top of the head of our little ghost. So that's what we have there. And now, as you can see, our string will hold secure. That will dry in just a moment. I'm going to take some of my stuffing. This is stuffing I had around. You can, of course, buy a bag of stuffing, or if you like to make pillows or toys, you might have some. As I mentioned, you can get stuffing from items from a thrift store. And this is something I discovered way back when I was just I wanted to make pillows as practice for sewing, making other crafts. So what I did is I was at a thrift store and I found that there they had a bin of stuffed animals. They were 25 cents a piece. Great. So I took those stuffed animals. I can't tell you, I probably bought $5 worth, and these were pretty large stuffed animals. I took them home, I cut them open, and I pulled out all the stuffing. Now, I will say, some of the stuffed animals, they were not up to snuff. Some of them were dirty, and I didn't want to use that stuffing. Some of them were fine, and some of them, what I then did is, you can put your stuffing and you can hand wash it if you are concerned. Let it soak, let it absorb some water, let it air dry, and it'll be fine to go and clean. Just a tip to save money. I am always looking for ways to save money. Now that I've talked quite a bit, here we go. So you're gonna take just a small handful. You do not want this to be overstuffed, because then otherwise we just have a white ball. We don't have then a floating ghost. So I put this right here, right over top of where I had glued, and similar as I had done with the smaller coffee filter, I'm going to try to form the head with the stuffing, trying to keep in mind my face that I was doing on my little ghost. And here we can see, I think, for me, that is a good size head. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn. This will be exactly the same as we did it before. And we are going to take this, and I'm just going to hold some out, and we will wrap this around and around. And you want to, of course, be careful that you are not getting, if I hold it this way, it's better, that you're not getting the string on the top wrapped in here. And similarly, you can tie this in front if you are interested in making a bow. I will, of course, include a video someday on how to tie a tie or how to make a pretty bow, because those are things that we're just not going to do today. Don't worry, I'll be making more. So as we go, I'm wrapping this around. Wrappy, wrappy, wrappy. And again, I don't have an exact number, probably 7 or 8 times. You can wrap more. If you want a wider band around its neck, you can wrap less. As long as it's going to be secure, you could technically just wrap this around once and tie your knot, and it would hold as long as you pulled it tight. So now I wrap this around, and I'm going to use my tail end and finish that off a little bit. And I have just a little bit left, making that cut in my yarn. And here we go. I have my strings, and they are a little hard to see because it's white on white. So now, again, I'm just going to do the same exact thing that I did before. Make a knot, tie it, make a knot, where I cross my 2 ends over and pull them tight. Wonderful. And again, feel free to try and tuck that in. I did that on some of my earlier ones and it looked great, but if you have your glue gun handy, which if you followed this pattern, you will most likely need that, and just put a little bit of glue right on top there. This just secures the strings. There will be, and I don't know if you can see it, some wispy, almost spiderwebby type strings coming off of the hot glue. That's okay. Once the glue dries a bit, you can pull those off and it's not a big deal. And once you've done that, you can trim these items. Now, if you do not want to make the incision on the top of your ghost head, if say you want this to look more like a hanged ghost and you want it to be almost like a noose, what you can of course do is you can use your brown yarn so it looks like rope, and you can make a noose around its neck and let it hang, and it will hang a little sort of bent over. I had done that with some of my ghosts earlier. I didn't like how they looked, but that is definitely an option of what you can do. So there you go. That was a very quick craft. You're able to do that. Set your ghosts up. You can make them stand, although mine look a little funny, but they're great to have hanging around, and they just add a whimsical air to your Halloween decorations. So I hope you enjoyed, and as I said, inexpensive items. See you again soon. Did you have fun? Did you go on an adventure and create some ghosts? Hopefully not too scary. Whether you made a ghost that was large or small, I would love to hear about it. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you made this, if you didn't make this, if you would like to see more activities like this. Trust me, I have lots of ideas. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to see what I'm up to, because there's more things that I create than what I put videos out for. Also, be sure to check out my website. There I am working on putting together all the recipes and craft directions for the items I make and make videos for. So you can look at them whenever you want to make the activity. Maybe you watch the video and don't have time to watch it a second time, but you still want to make this craft. The directions will be written out for you. Please also subscribe and ring that bell so you can be notified when I make more crafting and cooking videos. I will see you next week, same time, same place, and we will be again doing something in preparation for Halloween. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye!